Does it feel a little bit better than maybe it did at the start of last year?
600 meters. That's how far before the apex a Formula One driver is now lifting off the throttle. Not in the race, not to save fuel. Lewis Hamilton didn't shout it, he didn't post it on social media. He said it quietly, almost surgically, the way a 7-time world champion delivers a verdict he knows the world isn't ready to hear.
I mean, I don't think today's felt good for anybody because it's so windy.
In terms of performance in itself, it's very difficult to know.
It's the lowest grip I've ever felt here.
And we don't really know where we are for now.
In my 20 years, so yeah.
That's not what racing is about. And somewhere in a Bahrain pit garage, engineers stared at data that confirmed something deeply uncomfortable. Formula One's most radical regulation change in history isn't just reshaping the cars, it's reshaping the soul of the sport itself. So here's the question nobody at the FIA wants you to ask. Is 2026 Formula One's greatest leap forward, or its most dangerous identity crisis? The 2026 regulations were sold as the future: 50% electrification, sustainable fuels, active aerodynamics. The marketing was immaculate. But what Hamilton and Max Verstappen discovered on track, that felt very different. First came the gears. Corners that were previously taken in 3rd or 4th gear are now being attacked in 1st and 2nd, not because drivers want to, because they have to. The removal of the MGU-H, Formula One's heat energy recovery system, combined with the tripling of MGU-K power output, created a brutally sensitive energy equation. If you don't harvest enough under braking, you don't have the electrical deployment you need down the next straight. So drivers are forced deeper into lower gears, artificially spiking revs, sacrificing corner balance just to feed the battery. That's not instinctive racing, that's mechanical negotiation. But that was just the start, because what those downshifts are doing to the rear of the car is sending shockwaves through the paddock. The step between gear ratios is larger. When a driver drops into 1st gear to maximize regeneration, the rear snaps. Add reduced downforce, add a tailwind. Suddenly, even the most experienced hands on the planet are fighting their own machine. At Barcelona testing, turn 10 became a warning sign. Lockups everywhere, rear instability, cars sliding across the top of their tires instead of cutting cleanly through the apex. Then came the moment that stunned even veteran engineers. And this is where the story gets dark. The purest expression of speed in motorsport. Maximum attack, zero compromise, 1 lap, everything on the line. Hamilton confirmed that at certain circuits, particularly those with long flowing sections and limited heavy braking zones like Barcelona, drivers may be forced to lift and coast during a qualifying lap, 500 meters before the apex, sometimes 600. Because without aggressive braking zones, the battery doesn't recharge sufficiently. And without that charge, deployment runs out before the lap is complete. Pure aggression could mean energy collapse before the finish line. The FIA presented this as a technological leap forward. But here's the twist nobody expected. Ferrari's race simulation data from Bahrain Day 3 told a completely different story. Hamilton completed 150 laps, the second highest of any driver across the entire test. Over 28 comparable race pace laps, his Ferrari trailed only Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli. McLaren's Oscar Piastri was 18 seconds further back. George Russell's Mercedes simulation was 21 seconds adrift. The car that's too complex to qualify flat out was the fastest race machine in the paddock. So which version of 2026 is real? McLaren's team principal, Andrea Stella, a man who measures every word in a press conference, confirmed on the record. Early indications from a competitiveness point of view definitely put Ferrari and Mercedes at the top of the list. Lando Norris, the reigning world champion, was even blunter. McLaren, he said, has a pretty big step to make to be confident of beating Ferrari. Red Bull's technical director placed his own team 4th, explicitly naming Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren ahead of them. These are not political games. These are competitors telling the truth because the data left them no alternative. But the data also revealed something far more disturbing inside the Ferrari garage. When engineers analyzed Hamilton's long runs in detail, they found the SF26 doesn't just have a performance ceiling, it has a performance window, and that window is razor thin. When tire temperature, energy management, and engine mapping align perfectly, the car is almost predictable. Neutral balance, clean traction, lap after lap of controlled degradation that rivals can't match. But shift any single variable, rear ride height by a fraction, tire pressure by a whisker, energy recovery sequencing by a beat, and the balance changes abruptly. The rear becomes nervous. Braking phases generate mechanical stress that didn't appear in simulation. The SF-26 stops being a weapon and starts being a liability. Hamilton identified the pattern within hours. He told engineers precisely where the car becomes delicate and under which sequences the system begins to strain. Ferrari immediately began reworking engine braking and hybrid management parameters mid-test, not reacting to a visible failure, but trying to widen the operating window before it became a structural weakness. That's not a minor correction. That is a strategic pivot in the middle of a test session. And that one detail changes everything. Hamilton's warning wasn't about resisting change. It was about protecting the core of competition. The consequences are layered, and they cut deep. For the drivers, victory may now depend on who masters deployment timing, harvesting phases, and control mapping with surgical precision. The driver who manages best may beat the driver who attacks hardest. Discipline over daring, algorithms over instinct. For the championship, Ferrari is shown the fastest race pace, but Red Bull's energy deployment advantage on straights, the thing Russell described as pretty scary, could reshape that picture entirely once racing begins. McLaren's development rate means their current deficit may not survive the first half of the season. And for the sport itself, McLaren's Stella raised 3 specific safety concerns before Melbourne: dangerous race start procedures, extreme closing speeds when energy-depleted cars suddenly lift, and insufficient overtaking opportunities without DRS. These are not theoretical risks, they are paddock-wide anxieties. Verstappen called the 2026 cars Formula E on steroids. He reportedly refused to continue simulator tests because the driving experience was so unpleasant. Fernando Alonso described taking a corner 50 kilometers slower than the previous season, not for performance reasons, but to save electricity for the straight. This wasn't the future the fans were promised. This was a warning. Scenario 1. Ferrari masters the operating window. Hamilton finds the rhythm, and for the first time in a decade, a 7-time world champion, written off, publicly criticized, and counted out, rewrites the ending of his own story in red. Scenario 2. The energy chaos consumes the season. Software defines the standings, and fans, watching drivers lift off the throttle on qualifying laps, begin asking a question Formula One cannot afford to answer. Are we still watching racing? Scenario 3. The FIA listens. Adjustments are made before Melbourne. 2026 finds its identity, and Formula One discovers that the most radical regulation reset in its history was, against all odds, exactly what the sport needed. 3 scenarios, 3 futures. Only one of them preserves everything that made this sport great. Can Ferrari keep the SF-26 inside its operating window when the real pressure of a championship begins? Or will the most promising car of 2026 become its own worst enemy? Too fast, too sensitive, too complex to control when it matters most. Hamilton said it plainly: 600 meters of lift and coast on a qualifying lap. That's not racing. And if that sentence turns out to be a prophecy rather than a complaint, the FIA won't just have an engineering problem, they'll have an identity crisis. So tell me, is 2026 Formula One's boldest evolution, or the moment the sport stopped being about speed? Drop your verdict in the comments, because the next race won't just be about points, it'll be about what Formula One actually is.